time opening. We have an eye, sort of a nostril, 2 teeth. One of the teeth has a small cavity. Close call, folks, but I think we got here just in time.
Presented by Maria Menounos and Kevin Undergaro. This is Anatomy of a Movie. In-depth discussions and breakdowns of various movie titles. And now that you've seen the movie, let the dissection begin.
Welcome everybody back to Anatomy of a Movie. Today we are doing The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. This great Ben Stiller 2013
2013 it opened, yeah.
We watched it in 2014. Happy
Yes.
New Year to everyone too.
Happy New Year.
We're all, some of us are back here.
Yeah.
I'm your host Marisa Serafini. With me I have
Demetri, Panos, and I do wish Happy New Year, Marissa.
Yeah,
it's so
Happy
good
New
to
Year.
see
This is
you.
the
I'm
first
so
time
glad
we're
we're
seeing
here.
each other.
Yes,
in the year.
and all you watching The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, it is a very special and intimate version. It's just the two of us.
Yeah, it really is. It's
Oh,
just the two
and
of
our
us.
friend at the board.
And of course,
And
we
of
have
course.
Steven the Mute and running the ones and twos. What's up, Steven?
Doing great.
Steven did not see this movie.
So we're going to
but
completely ruin
we're
it
gonna
for him.
Put him on the spot all the time and just have him go with it.
Steve Norman Bates is the mother.
Oh,
Damn it.
don't tell the ending yet.
Damn.
Oh, goodness. All right, so let's just get into it. I really did enjoy this film, and then I didn't realize Ben Stiller directed this movie until the end credits.
Come on.
No,
Come on.
no, I'm serious.
I know you were away for the holidays.
I was away, but it was just one of those films I was like, oh, it looks good and it looks interesting, but I didn't really read much up on it, and then I went into it not really knowing what to expect, and then I was like, oh my goodness, this is a Ben Stiller production. It was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I want to start off by saying, just to read, what this movie is really, the mission statement of Life magazine: to see the world, things dangerous to come to see behind walls, draw closer, to find each other, and to feel that is the purpose of life. And that is the purpose of this movie, I strongly believe. And, I did know that Ben Stiller directed this and had a big hand in this movie. And I think, for me, the movie was very enjoyable. It's a good audience. It's a good audience, crowd-pleasing movie. I think it hits, for the most part, it hits the right buttons. I think that if it's a great date movie.
Yeah.
It had some really big scenes to it. There were some great parts to it. I think on the whole, for me, the flow of the movie at certain points seemed a little disjointed, and sort of kind of was in a sense it was jarring to me. But when we got to the end and it had a sort of nice payoff, I wanted it something bigger. And I'm not sure if this was because of the way Fox was poising the picture. Perhaps the marketing, too, which we can talk about a little bit later, seemed to be a little bit confusing, what they were going for, what they were trying to, it was either a prestige movie or, hey, this is a PG big family movie. They released it on December 25th, and I think that could have been an issue, too. There were so many prestige films out there. But, on the whole, I think if you go to see this movie, I think on the whole you'll enjoy it and you'll come out feeling good and feeling nice. And you know what? For that to happen in a movie these days, that ain't bad.
Yeah, and that's not hard. And I think the meaning and the purpose of life was, it really resonated throughout the whole movie. And you can see the character arc a little bit in Ben Stiller's character, and then just throughout it was very deep and profound, and it really touched upon, I guess you can say, modernized it today. And I think a lot of people can really relate to it, and they're escaping the mundane business lifestyle that one might have, and just having that imaginary world that they just love to escape to. And I think everyone likes that. People like the idea of grandeur.
Yeah, I think from its roots, from its short story to the Danny Kaye classic, which, if you're
1947.
Yeah, the question is, who's Danny Kaye? But, I think the purpose is there's a little bit of Walter Mitty in all of us.
Yeah.
And, in this movie, definitely thematically, I think has that. I think Walter Mitty is almost the everyman. It's above and beyond being stuck at that job or his job was in the basement of this thing, and he was in a job that's dying. He was a negative. He basically cataloged negatives, negative assets. Negative meaning 35 millimeter film, which is going away. This is an aspect that we can talk about because it's something that I really liked about this movie, because it's something that's affecting the film industry today, and it has been for the past 5 to 10 years. Everybody has that sense of feeling, you show me somebody who doesn't daydream, and that's a person who, he's not alive. He or she's not alive. Come on, everybody in one way, shape, or form daydreams, whether it be about getting the girl or the guy, or beating up on the boss, or having that funny line or something. And, that's the Walter Mitty. That's what Walter Mitty, in essence, especially in this movie, is about. And trying to break those bounds and getting out of one's head and reaching for life.
Yeah, and the story, The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, it originated by, it was a short story. It only was like 2 to 3 pages long. It wasn't really long. Written by James Thurber back in 1939, which I believe the New Yorker published it March 18th, 1939. But that short story got rave reviews from the men back in that time, because they loved how Walter would escape the mundane lifestyle and get into that just that freedom and having that imagination really spoke to the men. Sure. Even back in that time, and I think it still does today.
Yeah. And the Danny Kaye movie, if I'm correct, and it's interesting, I remember reading the short story as a kid. I grew up watching the Danny Kaye movie, but I haven't seen it. I haven't seen the Danny Kaye movie in 25 years at the very least. And if I remember correctly, he was a person who was engaged, and his imagination took him on adventures to try to get himself out of out of peril, potential peril of getting married. And Danny Kaye at the time was considered, he was a very good actor. He was a very good physical actor. His faces were amazing. He could play young, old. There aren't many Danny. The closest I could come to, and it'd be an insult to me for Danny Kaye, is maybe like Jim Carrey in the day, like when Jim Carrey was very popular. He had those qualities that Danny Kaye, which made him famous for. So yeah, and then when you have Ben Stiller do it, Ben Stiller is a great everyman.
I think so too. Yeah, and I think a lot of people can touch upon that, because he is that likable guy. He can do comedy, but it's nice to have him in more serious roles here and there too. So,
yeah, absolutely.
And I think he speaks to most of the American, well, not just American, but that regular man. And that mentality.
I would even go farther. I think Ben Stiller's appeal, I think he has a great crossover appeal. I think that his movies, he can appeal to young and old. He does the Night of the Museum movies. Yeah. He can be in rated R comedy, Something About Mary. But I think women aren't threatened by him. They like him. He's funny. He's affable on screen. And I think that when he came to, when he comes across a Walter Mitty, I think he's really good, and he's supposed to have certain qualities of nebbishness, of being enclosed within himself, not being affected by past events in his life that has sort of kept him closed. He can't even do internet dating. He's afraid to hit the enter button on a wink because he doesn't know what's going to happen. So he creates these elaborate fantasies where he wishes he could be somebody else and he could just do this. So, and again, I think the quality of a Walter Mitty is that I think in certain situations, whether it be a very dramatic life or we're with friends, we may have wished we handled something differently, or we imagine that we'd want to do something differently, or so.
Yeah,
Everybody
and
does.
you had mentioned that yes, Ben Stiller plays Walter Mitty, but also a lot of names were actually originally attached to this so-called remake, and you had mentioned Jim Carrey back in
Jim
the day.
Carrey.
After knowing that Jim Carrey was originally attached to it, I can picture that because Eternal Sunshine and Spotless Mind,
Sure.
and The Truman Show. I can definitely picture Jim Carrey hit that type of acting that he usually do. I can see him translate that to Mitty, but a lot of different names are also attached to this film as well.
Yeah, I mean, Steven Spielberg was once, said to be attached to it. And I think we would have gotten a different movie. And with Carrie, too, again, we are talking years ago that the gestation period of this movie has been a while. It's been hanging around for a little while.
Yeah.
As far back as, from what I've read, Carrie was involved somewhat after Lemony Snicket's, which was, I don't know how many years ago, but let's just say
Lemony Snicket
close
came out
to
in
10?
2004.
Yeah, so we're close to 10 years on
Yeah.
Lemony Snicket's. So, and that was, I believe, a Paramount movie. So yeah, it just, these projects, they come together, they fall apart. Timing, if it's things aren't taking, if things are taking a long time to put these things together, and a director, an actor, a writer even will have other projects that they have to do, and they can't stick around and hold on. And it's the same thing with, it's a great example, Guillermo del Toro. We talked about this at The Hobbit, where the Desolation of Smog, Guillermo del Toro was supposed to direct this, and it got stalled for such a long time that he's like, guys, I gotta go. It's not an uncommon thing for this to happen. So the mere fact that this took a decade to come to fruition, yeah, it happens.
But yeah, it's good that they did it because originally the 1947 Danny Kaye movie, I believe James Thurber wasn't too pleased with the first version that came out. So I think having that and knowing that, they had all this time to always want to make another remake and probably try to redeem themselves.
Yeah, well, I'm not even sure if it's redemption because, people do look back
or just try to improve upon it.
Yeah, and you can make it, again, I think what we were talking about is that, well, there's a Walter Mitty in each of us. Mm-hmm. And so that, in a sense, could make it timeless. Done right, it becomes a timeless story. And, Steve Conrad, the writer, he basically, he just wanted to, he wanted to take that everyman about a person who dreams of a better life and learns that the only way he'll ever become the man he knows is just to go out and step into life to do it. And we all have to step into life in a sense. And I think these are the themes that attracted Ben Stiller. Because when Steve Conrad's Passer, his script came along, it spoke to Ben Stiller. According to Ben Stiller, and if he's been on Howard Stern, there are a lot of interviews out there, he said by reading the script, he said, yeah, it spoke to me. And he goes, and this is the script that I wanted to do. I remember watching like the Danny Kaye movie, but I don't remember it. I read the short story so long ago. It's always been something there, but I wanted to bring something new to the table. And for the most part, well, he did bring something new to the table.
And he brought his production crew kind of with him as well, because Owen Wilson eventually got attached to the film. And I like that because there was an interview Ben Stiller said that when he was starting off directing and getting into the filmmaking business, he just kind of got tired waiting around for other people. Yeah. So he and his friends just went out and made films, and that's why he's a lot of his films, like, he directed and had his people on it. And then Ben Stiller doing this movie, it was very much the same thing. Sure.
Yeah, he's he's becoming a more and more accomplished director, through my eyes. And I think that, I wasn't a big fan of Cable Guy when it came out. I was a big fan of Tropic Thunder. I forget if there was something in between, but Tropic Thunder is a great movie and really shows what he was able to do with a budget and, and like a big budgeted comedy, and he made it work. And you can tell that he gets the respect of his actors. I mean, Robert Downey Jr., if memory serves, was nominated for his role. And the people that he works with seem to definitely respect him as a director. I mean, when you get somebody, Sean Penn, I'm sure at times maybe working for a paycheck, but I can't can't imagine him being an easy get. And if you're able to get Sean Penn to come into your movie to film, there's a respectability there. Kristen Wiig was, really, all of his support cast, you could tell he got good performances from them. I can't point to anybody and say that they sucked.
Oh, yeah, I definitely agree. I think that the direction of where he wanted all the characters and even Walter Mitty, because this movie is so different from the short story that was originally written, because in the short story, it just takes place in a matter of a couple minutes of guy waiting in his car, waiting on his wife, who's doing errands and stuff. But I loved how this movie literally took Walter to different places.
Sure.
And that because in the short story, he just imagined all these different places. But in this movie, he literally goes.
Absolutely.
And I love how they really took the short story and built upon that.
Yeah.
Over the time and years.
Yeah. No, what I latched on to is I really did like the theme. Well, the theme of going out and grabbing life. Going out and living life. And I really
Carpe diem.
Carpe diem. And I really love the fact that the focus of this movie was the final issue of Life magazine.
Yeah.
Just before we started putting down this podcast, you said you were asking me if Life was an actual magazine. And Life was a huge magazine. That
was like early 1900s to I believe like 1930s. To the 1930s.
No, I think Life lasted longer than that.
Life magazine?
Life magazine was around when I was around, and it was sort of kind of like it was almost like it was like a National Geographic, except because it was very pictorial.
And that's what I got.
It's
that
very
feeling.
Pictorial,
Yeah.
except that it wasn't so. Like, it wasn't just about wildlife and this. I mean, Life was big. Life was big in the newsstands. Their covers were amazing. We should look up, you can look up images of some of the best Life magazine covers. And in fact, the movie showcases some of the best magazine covers that they've had. And it was just one of those magazines that was on the newsstand it was big, bold, and unfortunately, due to electronic media,
discontinued.
just couldn't sustain.
Yeah.
And and I just find it that you have a man who's trying to he's trapped in his own shell, and he doesn't have a quote unquote life. And the sole purpose is he's a negative assets manager, and he works closely with the photographer Sean Penn, who is still working with who's still working with film.
Old school.
And it's mentioned it's a dying breed. And, it's a dying art, dying breed. He still works in film, much like Christopher Nolan still works at 35 millimeter. Mm-hmm. And, it's the last, they're putting together the last print copy of Life before it goes over to the internet, to digital. And the photographer sends him the frames, his last like camera roll, and he says -25. The
quintessence.
The quintessence of Life, and it's not in the roll. And our Walter Mitty has a mystery to solve, and he's got a girl to get, a mystery to solve, and how does he do it? How does he?
Life is getting taken over by this new managerial company that's just in charge of all determinations.
Absolutely.
For the new
and the metaphors
that they're getting to.
The metaphor about the dying magazine and Life is changing. Life is changing. And for Walter Mitty, Life is definitely changing.
Yeah, and they need number 25 to get the last cover on.
Yep.
So, but what do you think of? Well, let's get into the cast members. Mm-hmm. And there were a lot of, yes, we had Ben Stiller, but I want to talk about the supporting roles. They're great people, a lot of nice names attached to it, like Adam Scott.
Yeah.
And Parks and Rec, Party Down. He's been in a lot of comedic roles, and it was interesting to see him play that mean boss that everyone just hates.
Yeah. and he did it so well. But I think that's part of like why, you get a comedic actor to do that. He did it really well, and at the same, and yeah, you're a guy that you want him to get his comeuppance. I thought he was really good because he's Adam Scott. It's hard to, like when he's being snide.
Hard to picture him that way.
Sarcasm seems to be his way. It can be his way of comedy, so it seems to fit for him. But yeah, he played that part. He was great.
And he really demeans and very condescending to Walter, and
absolutely
calling him out in front of everyone. Very unprofessional in his way.
Oh, absolutely.
And it makes me question how he even got that.
Sure.
That position that he is spearheading all that.
Yeah.
But and then there was that one moment where he was calling out Walter Mitty like Major Tom.
Major Tom. Yeah.
Which
are you out there, Major Tom?
I mean, the music to this movie, and we'll get more into the music later, but like the soundtracks throughout really depicted life in Walter's way, and I think it was really great how they used it.
Yeah, I'll save comments on music till when we get to that, but you're right. And Major Tom plays a major faction. And I really liked Kristen Wiig in this role. She was adorable. Probably like, as most adorable as she has been and can be in a movie.
Yeah, and Kristen Wiig said that this role, because it is more serious, she's known for like SNL and comedy.
Right.
She said this was challenging for her, but she enjoyed it because she thinks comedy and more serious, they're two different muscles, and she liked strengthening that muscle for the dramatic role that was in this movie. Yeah,
she added for me anyway, she added a breezy air. Like she wasn't necessarily comedic, but yet she had a nice breezy presence throughout the movie, and it was a good female. It was a good match for she and Ben Stiller. I thought that they would be good together.
Yeah, I think she was really a driving point in Walter's life and a catalyst, because we start off the movie with her profile, and he wants to get to know her, and then she gets to know him, and then throughout she's his driving force throughout the whole movie. And when Walter goes to Greenland for the first time, and he's imagining her, she's even encouraging him in his imagination throughout the whole movie.
Yeah, pardon me. Yeah, she's definitely the driving force, and I think that came from it was a great scene. They were sitting outside having lunch, and he was telling her he has this problem. And she goes, "Oh, well, I'm taking a mystery writing class, and they say you work everything backwards." And it's all right, so let me see the pictures, and let's see what we can come up with. And I think from her inspiration was she was getting him out of his shell. She was saying, you should go on this journey. Like, this would be fantastic to do. Like, you should do this.
Yeah, she's motivating him.
She motivated. Perfect word. And you could see in his mind that she was like going, maybe I should, because this is important. And she was definitely the inspiration and the motivation for him to go do what he did and to find life's journey.
Yeah, and you can see Walter's so dedicated to his job. Even though he did get fired, he's still really committed and loyal to his job and the Life magazine, that he will hop on a plane to Greenland to find and track down the photographer to get that negative back.
Yeah.
So, I loved how Kristen Wiig was the motivation catalyst.
Absolutely.
Throughout the whole film.
Absolutely.
I think it really kept him going.
And, you could take it a notch further. Kristen Wiig was actually, if I'm correct, her character was his last fantasy. Because after that, his fantasies, reality took over.
Yeah.
Because that is when he jumps. I mean, it's a great penultimate scene in the movie. It's a really big scene. Great soundtrack.
That leap of faith.
He took that leap into the helicopter, and that is what got him on his life's journey to get him out. And that scene, Kristen Wiig being there as the fantasy, I believe that's the last time he dives into that world, because now he has a whole life ahead of him to do. And then at the end, hopefully Kristen Wiig will be there and he won't have to fantasize anymore. And I think it ended the way we wanted it to end, the way that it should have ended.
Yeah, and I loved how you brought that up, because when Walter, throughout more so the beginning of the movie, and he's having all these imaginations and fantasies, every time he gets out of it, someone's like getting his attention, and it's an immediate cut out of that fantasy. But then his last one, when he's thinking of Kristen Wiig's Cheryl Melhoff, and she's singing to him, she fades away. So it's that gradual getting out of it. So I liked how that was completely different from the other fantasies.
Well, because he did it on his own. He took his first steps and leap of faith on his own. He didn't have anybody pushing him. He was inspired. So and again, when you look at the movie like this, love or hate, I mean, you know, I can understand haters, but you know, I can tend to gravitate towards this so long as it's not, you know, you can go overboard. You know, I think this movie handled that portion of fine. I thought it worked.
Yeah, and there was another moment where I think Walter took a leap of faith when he was in the helicopter, and the pilot told him to jump into the ship.
Right.
And we see on screen that the lifeboat is on the left side, but he jumps off the right side, and it just made me think Walter is so right-minded, and he's set in his ways and stuff, and then he jumps out on the right side. It's a very right-minded kind of action that he did.
It's really funny because they go,
but I think,
said jump onto the ship, not that ship.
That ship.
So,
but it goes to show that, yes, he's still thinking that way, but he's willing to change his ways and just go out and be impulsive and do it.
Yeah, no, I mean, in those aspects, those are the aspects that I guess I sort of latched on to. Because every now and then you just got to go out and do it and step out. And, you know, in a sense, I don't want to bore everybody with my story, but I'm going to do it anyways. I mean, that was when I moved out to California. You know, I was a young pup. I had worked in the business at that point for about 6 years, being at Universal. Then I was at Hoyt Cinemas. And I just decided I got to go west, young man. And the people that I knew out here who were friends, that I consider friends, I could count on one hand. And I basically packed up my Toyota Paseo. You know, I picked a date. My best friend drove out with me for company, and drove out to LA. And it was a leap of faith. I was young enough and stupid enough and foolhardy enough to do it. It was, as I always tell people, it was a more guts than sense move. And in a sense, that was my Walter Mitty moment on moving on and trying to obtain life. And, you know, that was in 1996, folks. So I'm still here.
Look where you are now. I mean, had you had not done that, you wouldn't be here.
I wouldn't be here. And Kevin once said, hey, you know, in a million years, this is Kevin Inagaro, folks, in a million years. Our executive producer. Yeah, did you ever imagine doing this? And I looked at him and said, absolutely not. I mean, I dabbled in film criticism. I did film reviews for the Boston Phoenix and for WBC on radio. I never expected to be sitting in a chair with this great cast of characters and crew talking about movies, something that I love. So yes,
I love it.
Like, had I not taken that leap of faith, I wouldn't be doing this. And many of you out there are probably going, we wish you didn't take that leap of faith.
No, of course not. No, I have a somewhat similar story. I was given an opportunity and I thought about it, but I'm like, you know what? I'm never going to have this opportunity again. I got on a plane 4 days later, and I just came out here with one suitcase.
Yeah.
So, and sometimes you just got to do it. And
sometimes you do.
Had I not done it, I wouldn't be here either.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I think it's about, you have to take that leap of faith to start your life.
Yeah, and I think everybody has that moment. That moment where they're going to do it. And, you know, and again, folks, you should comment because, listen, I'd love to know other people's leap of faith stories, like what brought them out to LA or to wherever they are. But this, in a sense, is what Walter Mitty, the secret life of Walter Mitty, is about. You know, it's really funny when we talk about Ben Stiller. You know, he grows up with a pedigree. Stilla and Mira.
Oh, yes.
You know, and he grew up with a pedigree, and he's been in the business for a while. But we were talking about film. You know, it's a dying breed. It's a dying medium. And, you know, he, like his photographer, he shot Walter Mitty on film. You know, and he knew, and he's like, film is just such a special thing. And it is the heart and history of movies, is what he goes on to say. And the whole tradition of filmmaking, it's something that is going away very quickly, and it is disappearing from the world. So, I think that the whole movie is metaphorical from an industry standpoint, from a life standard, from a magazine. When you look at print issues, I mean, newspapers are dying.
Art.
Absolutely, yeah, in a sense, and those are the aspects that I latched onto, and I think that Stiller, I think he's becoming a more accomplished director. I think that there were some hurdles. I think there were some trips. Like, I think he had some trips in this movie.
Every director does.
Sure, but I think he's getting better. I like seeing him when he directs his own movies. I know his wish from even being on Howard Stern, where he said something to the effect, he goes, I think of my next project, I'd like to not be in my movie. I'd like to just direct and focus on that. But he continues to be an actor, and he talks about what the differences are.
Got to build that muscle.
Yeah, and it's funny because we were talking about his plunge into the water. Do you know that they actually, they didn't film that in a tank. He was actually plunged in Iceland. He actually jumped into raging waves of the North Atlantic, and he simulated his own plunge. It was really important that they didn't do the scene in a tank, and they had really high seas. And he goes, it really stunk. Is like he goes, there would be a boat in there filming me, and they would get a shot, but because they're a boat, it sounds like a spaceship, and they had to come around, so I'd be sitting in the water floating, waiting for the boat to come back around and take up another shot.
Wow.
And
That's amazing.
he says they were a mile out at sea with 7-foot swells, and and he goes, there was a real sense of danger. And it was one of those moments where I thought, oh, this is what real filmmaking is about. And I'm sure the executives of 20th Century Fox are going, oh, this is what insurance is all about.
You're
like, what the hell is going on? What are you doing, Ben? But I think
that's great.
That's great.
That's really just shows how much he's grown as an actor as well, to really take that plunge.
Literally.
Literally to really get that across. But
Sure.
I want to talk about the other actors as well. We had a lot of nice cameos, like Sean Penn,
Sure.
of course, who plays the mysterious photographer,
Right.
that gets all the film. He was only in there for one scene of the movie, but I think it was really nice with their conversation that Walter and he had, just the meeting life, and he, for being such an eccentric kind of person, like you see him, he's adventurous and he just goes out there. And there's that one moment where he could have taken that photo of
the snow leopard.
The snow leopard,
yeah.
But he doesn't. He takes it for himself. That he is the epitome of life.
Yeah.
That he just enjoys life.
I have to enjoy the moment.
All encompassing.
Yeah. And I think that character, I mean, an argument could be made that character was as inspirational and, if not motivational, for Walter Mitty to go out there. You're right. He's only physically in the movie for about 10 minutes, give or take, maybe a little less, a little longer. But yet it is his words that he sends to Walter. You learn that he is Walter is his go-to guy for all of his film projects that he does. And it is the picture that Walter has hung up on his wall of the Sean Penn as the photographer, that his mind imagines the photographer saying, come on board, like, come on out, like, enjoy life, get out here. I thought that was motivational as well. And it is when they finally meet and get together, it's great. But I think another thing that makes that character, that the Sean Penn character is throughout the whole movie, is that he was actually in New York City, and you learn that he had a conversation with Mitty's mom.
With his mom.
And he's like, wait, like he's helping her move into a place. And she's talking, she goes, oh yeah, he's a really great guy. He really loves you. And he's like, you were talking to him? He goes, yeah, when? And she's, a week ago or something. And she made her or him the persimmon cake, which again is throughout the whole movie. Yeah.
Which was another nice theme that they used that was another item throughout the movie that just kept the plot going. Because it had the photographers itinerary of the places he's going to be in, the dates.
Sure.
So that was another thing that helped Mitty travel and
mystery,
go other
sure.
places as well.
And I have a feeling that there's something symbolic about persimmons, but I don't know what it is. We can look it up, but yeah, I think Sean Penn being in the movie, I mean, he was very good. He was very good. I liked him.
And I did like his character because the way he thought, like, and how he saw life, and because it was a great opportunity to take that mountain, the snow leopard photo.
Sure.
But it was not needed. You just need to enjoy life. And then he saw the guys off the side be like, that looks like fun. Let's do it.
Yeah, he's like, that looks like fun. We should go join him.
Yeah.
Yeah, playing soccer.
Just that simple man that really, truly goes out in life and lives it.
Yep.
So, and then we also had Kathryn Hahn, who played his eccentric sister, who it was a nice cameo for her because I liked how Ben Stiller, how Walter Mitty is like so straight A type A personality and over like mundane, and then you have a sister who's completely opposite of him.
Oh, absolutely.
It just always makes you wonder how that happens.
Almost oblivious.
Yeah.
To life, in a sense, and what's going on around her, because she is her life. She's,
Yeah, she lives
I got to
her own
do
life.
this. I'm going to be Rizzo. You got to do this. And he's like, yeah, they're like, that scene at work. He goes, what are you doing here? She goes, well, I got an audition. I'm playing Rizzo in Greece. And he's like, yeah. She goes, well, you got to go watch Mom. And he's like, I got to work. And she's like, no, you got to watch Mom.
Yeah, like drop everything because I have an audition. But the great thing with his sister, he also she also had that toy that's stretchable
Stretch
toy,
Armstrong.
which still
Do you remember Stretch Armstrong?
Yeah, I've seen it
Okay.
in here, but I never had one.
Well, why
but
would
that
you?
that was another
I would.
item. Like, I love the use of all the items throughout the movie because later on that becomes something that Walter uses to trade for the skateboard, which he also enjoys life as well on that.
Yeah, I mean, again, when we talk about the metaphors and why Walter Mitty can be argued as being the everyman, as we get older, I don't know, I won't speak for everybody, but, I tend to see that I tether myself to certain things from my past, whether they're my Star Trek action figures and Star Wars stuff, or my older comic books and or older TV shows that I've watched. In a sense, Walter Mitty, he's a person of that age where he's tethered to skateboard. He used to be pretty proficient at riding a skateboard. And Stretch Armstrong back in his day, it was a toy, and that meant something to him. And we all, I think, and again, when we get to a certain age, that we may reminisce or get maudlin about certain items that meant something for us. And I don't know, I'm the type of guy that I'll try to find that item.
It's sentimental.
Yeah, it's sentimental. I'll try to find it in one way, shape, or form, or get a close facsimile thereof and go, I used to have this as a kid. Like, everybody has their rosebud, so to speak.
Yeah, that's true. And I loved how you brought back that when there was that moment where we saw the picture of Walter when he was a kid. He had a mohawk. So it goes to show that even when he was a kid, he was adventurous. He was fun.
Right.
And then we find out, like, the moment his dad passed away, he had to literally drop everything, drop that, and get a job, grow up. And that's why he got kind of stuck in life. He was forced to grow up. And then now he has the moment to enjoy life again.
Enjoy life. Or at least reach out and grab it.
Yes, definitely.
And so, yeah.
And a couple other, Shirley MacLaine, who plays the mother.
Sure.
Yeah, Edna. She was great.
Yeah.
Shirley MacLaine's great in every film that she does, but she was that nice mother figure that still helped Walter in the end, and kept that memento, the wallet that had the negative.
And and that character could have gone another way. That character could have been one of the reasons why Walter was interested. Like, they could have written that character as such that she was the nagging mother, given yet another reason to escape the reality and go into fantasy. But she wasn't. There wasn't and I sort of kind of enjoyed that too, because she was a loving mother. They were trying to move her trying to
From one
move her
apartment to
from
another.
one apartment to another, and it was important to get this big grand piano, which their dad, her husband, had bought for her as one of their first gifts, and there was a love in that family that you can tell, and it was nice that Shirley MacLaine's character wasn't the nagging mother. Like, well, she really did care for Walter, and she recognized that Walter sort of kind of put a shield around him and stayed in his shell. She says, well, Walter, every now and then you do zone out. She goes,
Yeah,
it happens.
that thing you do.
That thing you do. Yeah.
That thing you do.
And she was good. She was a nice presence.
Yeah, and another character that I thought was interesting and great, Patton Oswalt played Ted. I love that. I hope all eHarmony representatives are like that.
They're not. I was.
Of course not. But
I was on eHarmony. Nobody ever called me back.
No, I wish all the representatives.
No offense
were
to
like,
eHarmony, but I'm just saying I was on eHarmony for a little while, and
but he was another character.
He was a great character.
You hear his voice throughout most of the movie, but then he ends up being a pivotal character that helps bail out Walter, get him out of trouble, and then at the end of the movie, he's the one that's admiring Walter for everything, because at the beginning he's like, "Have you done anything mentionable?"
Yeah.
And then at the end, he's completely turned. He's like, "Oh, your life is amazing.
You're amazing." Yeah.
So just even that, I loved that character.
Yeah. Patton Oswalt was a lot of fun to be there, and still don't exactly know how he got to L.A. But in any case, another one of my favorite characters, we'll say. I don't know who the actor is, but it was the helicopter pilot.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Great.
That guy was great. And, when he goes to, it was Greenland was the first place he went to.
Greenland.
And he hops into that bar. And, he just travels up to the bar and he's telling his story to the bartender. And she goes, "Yeah, that's great. What do you want to drink?" And people are drinking their beers out of boots. And you ordered it by size of boot.
I'll have a smaller.
I'll have the smaller boot. And, and our helicopter pilot, who apparently had just gone through a nasty breakup, was singing karaoke drunk as a skunk. But the scene was great when he came over to Walter Mitty. And then they sort of kind of,
and he had a moment too, because his thumb was one of the first photos. So like every one of these secondary characters had a purpose in this movie, and there were so many little things that kept driving the plot forward.
Right,
and also as a person, he was one of the first people to help motivate Walter to go out. He's like, "I'm getting on the helicopter. Are you in or are you out?"
Yeah. What I sort of appreciated about that scene, because let's face it, there's a photo in the movie of a thumb, just a thumb, and I think there was a ring on it, right? And Walter Mitty goes to Greenland, and he goes to this little town in Greenland, and then he haps across the man.
There's only 8 people in Greenland.
And that's, because what are the odds that you're, it's like, okay, that's a lot, that's a big coincidence. But Walter Mitty's like, I'm still amazed that I was able to find the guy's thumb. And he's like, dude, there are only 8 people here. You're eventually going to bump into me in one way, shape, or form. So I was like, okay, at least they addressed that.
Yeah. And a funny little side bit that I read, that there's that line, there's only 8 people in Greenland, but on film, they only showed 8 different people while he was in Greenland.
In Greenland.
So I think I didn't recognize that at first until I was like, oh, yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah. That's believable. I believe his name is Olaf Olafsson. The actor who played the
I wonder if he was in The Thing. He sounds familiar. He looked familiar, but he was great. I mean, I like that character a lot.
Funny.
Yeah.
So great, a great cast.
Oh yeah.
Overall, and
a fun
I think
cast.
they
Absolutely.
all had their moments. They all really helped Walter get to all these different places throughout.
They helped him along in his journey.
Yeah. So I want to talk about cinematography.
Sure.
This movie was visually stunning, especially for all the places that he travels to, but also camera-wise.
Absolutely.
And just frame the photography on this. Like, there was not a still frame that didn't look like you could take any moment throughout this picture, and it could be a beautiful photograph.
Absolutely. Well, you are talking about I believe he's an Academy Award-winning cinematographer, Stuart Dryburgh.
Yeah.
And this guy has done movies like
so many.
The Piano, like Bridget Jones' Diary.
Yeah.
He's done everything from comedy to like Analyze This to The Recruit. Yeah,
Amelia.
Yeah, the guy's, he's done some episodes of Boardwalk Empire from what I see here.
Yeah.
The guy's talented. He has he's worked in all mediums. He's worked from television, he's done big features, and you're right. One thing about Walter Mitty where I felt it succeeded is it took me someplace. I felt like I was on a travelogue. I felt like I was being taken someplace because there were parts of the world that I had yet to see on film. And, I know that I should get out there and travel a hell of a lot more. And sometimes I do live vicariously. I learn about certain places through the movies and get to see them. They were visually striking and they looked different. And I felt like I was someplace different wherever Walter went. And I thought that was an asset to this movie.
And I loved how a lot of the framing in this movie, they used the rules of the 3/4 rule.
Mm-hmm.
And for those, I mean, sure, if you're in film, you should know the rules of the 3/4, that every frame the rules of 1/3, right. that 1/3 of the frame there's the subject and then the rest is right. the background and foreground and whatever. And they used a lot of that principle throughout the whole film, even at the beginning of the movie when in Walter's mundane lifestyle, when you see him going from his home to his workplace, and the use of the 1-point perspective and all the directions of the hard lines that are in the buildings and the floor, that even though he's in a boring atmosphere, it's still pointing him in different directions to go to.
Yeah, there was something, it was an over-the-head shot. It looked like he was walking, like there were waves.
Yeah.
It was towards the beginning. I think it was when he was walking to work.
To work. Mm-hmm. So, and then when he's walking on the ramp to work, there's all these hard lines that are directing him. I love the use of camera work in that way, and he
did a great job, and it looked good. It looked inviting. It looked like, it looked
he's
like
going
all the
somewhere
places.
in life. Even though he seems stuck, he's eventually going somewhere.
Yeah.
And there was one shot that I loved when he first gets to Greenland and he has the option of the blue car or the red car.
Or the blue car. Yeah.
And he chooses the red car, which made me think Matrix. For the first movie, Matrix, the red and the blue pill. And Neo takes the red one, which is adventurous. And Walter takes the red car. He
takes the red car.
Movie.
I think, and again, when we talk about like these are his baby steps, I think that by picking the red car, because everybody thinks of a red car, a sports car, and they were like freaking smart cars or something.
Very, very
European red or blue,
cars.
and he goes, "I'll take the red." And I think that was, aside from taking the trip and going and doing that, and then yes, I'm gonna pick the red. Yep, it was a red plane, and. He was making life's decisions. He was going for it all, and taking that car was just part of it. Leading him to Greenland.
Exactly, a lot of little things here and there that you can see his progression of character, shedding his past and enjoying his time now. But yes, the editing of this movie. This movie was almost close to 2 hours.
Yeah.
But I had the Sean Penn's Into the Wild kind of feel to it, that how he's going here and there. There's a nice smooth transition because he starts at work, but then he hops on a plane to Greenland. Yeah. And then he's forced back to come back because of work, and then he goes back out.
Sure.
So I loved how it kept going places to, here and there.
It's interesting. It's funny that you bring that up. And I could talk, we'll talk about the editing and visual effects and how they were combined because, taking him from reality into the beautiful reality or into the fantasy, I thought those scenes I thought were pretty good. But that one scene, when I talk about I think for me, the film's stumbling block is flow, not pacing. I don't want to confuse everybody. I thought the movie was paced pretty well. It doesn't necessarily overstay its welcome. However, for me, the flow of the movie became, and you brought up the one of the scenes is he's on this journey. he's getting somewhere. He's getting closer to finding the photographer, finding Sean Penn. He literally he flew over his head, and he's close there. He gets
him.
He could see him, and he talks to Kristen Wiig. And, he says, hey, I'm out here. And she goes, well, that's great, Walter. That's really good. And then she texts him or something happens. And then smash, he's in New York.
Yep.
And to me, that was very jarring because I was like, whoa, what the hell happened? I go, you're on a journey.
Instantaneously.
Yeah, it was instantaneously. He's back in New York.
Like,
and I'm
he hung up and then he got a text message.
Yeah. And I'm like, wait a minute. What happened to your journey? Like, you're on your journey. Don't go back to that drab place. Like, complete your journey. And to me, I understand what happened when he went back to New York. He gets fired, conversation with his mother, the wallet, throwing away. But it seemed to me that he only went back to New York so he could throw away his wallet for later online, the mother can find it for him. To me, that was jarring. It stopped the positive, it stopped the momentum of the movie for me. Because I was really into it, and then it really came to a harsh stop.
But it was a harsh stop, but I liked how when he went back out into the world, the second time he left, he had more motivation, he had more people to encourage him to, you're so close to getting close to him, to the photographer, that he was really driven, and he wanted to go out, and he had a different mindset going out for the second time.
The second time, yeah. I mean, he did. It was just, I don't know. It just bothered me because I was so into where this movie was going and the momentum that it had built. I mean, between coming into Greenland and making that leap and jumping off the ship, being attacked by a shark, getting onto the bigger ship, going into the town, from riding a bike to skateboarding to running to get to where he was and all that. And he goes back to New York. And I was like, why? I want to finish this journey.
And you can also see his progression throughout his clothes.
Absolutely.
He starts in business clothes with one pair of clothes, and then he gets into the water off the boat and whatnot, and they give him new pairs of clothes that are more comfortable, more loose, more relaxing. And then he loses the suitcase, he goes from a suitcase to a bag, and then even throughout the movie when he goes back for the second time, he has his travel bag. He's like really his explorer bag. Yeah, he's really into it. So you can see throughout just his physical appearance changing as well.
And actually, you bring up a good point too that I neglected to say. The other reason, I guess, for him to go back to New York was to get that travel bag that his father had, before passing, had given him a travel journal. Yeah. And so it was for him to go back, get that travel journal, start writing the things down, get that big travel bag that he never used. And this could potentially fulfill, or not potentially, it was going to fulfill his father's dream, that his father wanted him to travel and get out in the world. And now he was doing it.
His father gave him that travel book, the places I've been to, and at the beginning you saw it was completely empty.
Yeah. The other scene that sort of kind of took me out of the movie was one of the fantasies. In fact, it was the Benjamin Button.
Yes, Benjamin Button.
It was just
that was
odd.
The only scene I didn't like. It felt misplaced. It felt forced.
Totally.
Granted, I can understand they wanted to throw a comedic scene in there, but it had no place in the movie.
No, and it felt like it was a bit from Ben Stiller's television show, or it could have been a scene from Tropic Thunder. It just didn't fit. It was really weird.
With the pacing or the theme, the style that was the tone of the movie.
Right.
It really was just placed in there. Yeah. Maybe they wanted to get a laugh out of it, but more I got cringe out of it.
Yeah, same here. And again, to me, it stopped what was already a good positive flow. Mm-hmm. And then there's one scene, and it doesn't last long. It's maybe 2 minutes or whatever, but it's just like, what? Like, why?
And it was so weird.
And there was nothing kinetic about it. Like, all his other fantasies were somewhat kinetic. There was motion, like he was jumping off a bridge and or
saving.
Right.
Yeah.
So in this one was not, and it was just sort of kind of. It looked like something when he and Janine Garofalo used to host the MTV Movie Awards, like when they used to be entertaining. It looked like one of those skits. that they would do.
Yeah, they dress up and have fun. Or
Right.
Or something that you could pull out
Yeah.
SNL.
Yeah, absolutely. So those were the two scenes that sort of kind of stopped the flow.
I agree, and it didn't add to the movie.
No, it didn't add to the movie
all.
whatsoever.
It was just placed
Nope.
and had no purpose of being there.
No, and other than I mean, the end. We'll talk about the end, but where do we go? The editing was great. It worked, and again, I think it worked, especially when you were going from reality and a fantasy. At the beginning of the movie, most of the fantasy scenes take place in the first half of the movie.
Yeah.
If not all of them take place then. And the way that it blended reality with jumping into the fantasy was pretty seamless, And I thought that they did a really good job with that.
Yeah, and I liked how they transitioned out, like in and out here and there, because they were kind of different every single time. That, like, one of the times where he would imagine a different scenario of what was going on.
Right.
Like, he would punch, and then he would punch the guy, or like out of the building, and then cut back to it.
Yeah.
And so there were like different ways, and then there was the whole fighting through the street and over the stretch Armstrong.
Yeah.
So,
which again, that scene, I can understand if somebody were to say, I don't like that scene was big. It was like, but it didn't. I was like,
epic.
I didn't have a problem with that scene.
Neither did I.
I think one of my favorites was scene when they were in the elevator, and Adam Scott is there, and Adam Scott says something snide, and then Ben Stiller says, "Well, okay, Gandalf." He goes, "Why don't you return your?" He made a comment about his beard, and like, you're like, "Whoa!" Like, it was so and it's his fantasy. You realize that he obviously didn't say that to his boss, and he had his comrades with him, his colleagues, I should say, and they're all laughing at him. But then you realize that was his fantasy, but it was done seamlessly.
Yeah, and I liked how all of his fantasies were different.
Yeah,
completely different.
Including
maybe
Benjamin
it was
Button.
just one way you wish you could have said it this way, or it came out this big idea that it was just so different, and all of them were pretty standalone.
Yeah,
I think. And I also want to talk about the colorization of this movie and in the cinematography. That near the beginning of the movie, in his mundane life, you have the blues, the cold blues, the
grays,
steels, grays, the very kind of monochromatic, dull light atmosphere that he's living. And then once he gets into the fantasies, they're bright and orange and colorful. And then when he gets out into Greenland and all the places he's traveling to, it's so warm and bright and colorful.
And I looked at it too as it was fantastical. It was reality. It was a beautiful reality, but it was fantastical. Like, no one would picture, like, you could picture a fantasy of him jumping off of a helicopter into shark-infested waters, but that was the real part of his life. You could picture him going to Greenland, Iceland, where there's there's a volcano getting ready to erupt. That's fantastical. Like, that you could picture, like, that could have been one of his fantasies, yet in the movie it's his reality.
Yeah.
He is living through this volcano. And I loved how they made the reality grander than his fantasies were, because he was living life and his eyes were open to these wonderful things that, geez, I don't have to dream about a volcano. I'm seeing this happen. This is amazing. And I think that was the dichotomy of the movie too. That's something else that it says, that reality can be even better than the real, than
even
the fake
better
thing.
Than fantasy. So,
Sure.
Like, visually, this movie was so stunning. I was like, I want to get on a plane and go to Greenland.
Yeah, and they made a conscious decision of saying, regarding the fantasy reality thing, he didn't want, or Ben Stiller, like, they didn't want. I was reading that, these are things that would probably never happen, like jumping out of a helicopter. But if you're looking at it, like, you could picture somebody doing it. Like, somebody could actually bike 20, 30 miles to get here, or skateboard down. Like, you or I might not be able to do it without, breaking bones, but it could happen.
Yeah, and that was another moment where he's shedding off his clothes. He rips his tie apart and puts the rocks on his hand so he can skate.
Yeah.
And so just those little things here and there, you can really see his progression throughout the movie.
Right. And I enjoyed that.
Yeah, and I think the music score or all the soundtracks throughout this whole movie reflected what was the tone, the progression of going from that boring lifestyle into stepping out into the world,
right,
and enjoying life. And just there was the soundtrack that I believe that he worked with Theodore Shapiro, Teddy
Shapiro,
Shapiro, who's he's collaborated. Ben
Right.
Stiller has collaborated with on Tropic Thunder, and Dodgeball, and then he also worked with Jose Gonzalez, who has also done a number of work, and he built the orchestral theme underneath it as well.
Yeah, and he wanted Walter Mitty to have his incredible, he wanted him to be heroic. He wanted a beautiful theme, and he wanted the incredible imagination. According to Ben, from various press notes, he was saying, his imagination deserved a very noble and epic score. And, I think that heightened the character's progression throughout the movie. And when he was, in his fantasy world, I thought that the orchestral part, the score part was pretty good. But, we have to talk about Major Tom.
Yeah.
Major Tom, I was reading that they were nervous that Bowie might not have given them the rights to, they had to go get the rights. And after watching the movie and sort of kind of knowing that, the song Major Tom plays such a key part of the movie. We brought it up like at the beginning where Adam Scott's like going, "Hello, Major Tom, are you out there, Major Tom?" Ground control to Major Tom. He was using the song as a gimmick, as a comedic kind of a gimmick, like, Major Tom's out there or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's the Kristen Wiig character who brings it home, and she goes, don't listen to him about Major Tom. Major Tom is about adventure and seeking and going out there. And then when he's in Greenland, as you said, he has an imagination that Kristen Wiig comes out on stage with nothing but an acoustic guitar, clothes on her back, and she starts singing Major Tom. But then that builds into the crescendo of the actual David Bowie Major Tom. And the way that it's filmed, it's fantastic. And what Major Tom is about, blasting off into space, into the unknown, it has so much relevance in there that by the end of the movie, I was like, if they didn't get the rights to this song, I don't know what they could have used. Like, because
there's nothing else.
It fit perfectly.
I agree.
I don't think you could have gotten, I don't know, like they would have been screwed if they couldn't get the rights to that song.
And the fact that they use such a song to the one song that really just drives everything, that drives the character forward.
Absolutely.
And I just wanted to, it was amazing how well done that was.
Yeah, and it really does showcase, look at it, if you've watched this with me on here, you know that I love soundtracks, okay? I love soundtracks. I think music is a great, there we go.
There you go.
Yep, that's great. And keep that under the bed for a little bit, but music can be such an important factor to a movie, and we've seen it this year a couple of times. We've seen Score, how it works with gravity. We've seen American Hustle, and that 70s music, and how how it relates to every single scene, and how it's almost poetic. And in this movie, we have this one song that plays such a key fact, and it's just such a presence, and it says so much.
Yeah.
Music is important to movies, and I know you all know that, but it's why I love buying soundtracks and score. It does.
It is another part of the movie that a lot of people might not think of.
Yeah. Good job there in the booth.
Thank you, Steven. The Jose Gonzalez theme song for The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, one of the tracks is actually called Step Out. So step out into that world.
Yeah.
And overall, the music was just amazing. It really added to the movie.
Yeah, it did. I'm gonna say this. I'm finding arcade fire music to be it's becoming a little bit cliche in movies. Ever since Into the Wild, when they used it in the trailer and such, you got to find other Arcade Fire songs. I get it if you love it. I mean, it's booming in those scenes.
Hey, their
Don't
music
get me
is
wrong.
good for movies.
It's cinematic, but it's almost becoming cliche. It's like, oh, it's Arcade Fire again. Oh, it's that song again.
Yeah.
It's like,
It's like Requiem for a Dream music.
right? Yeah, it's
over and over again.
And it's fine. I'm not gonna bag on it too much, but there are other bands out there. I like Arcade Fire. Don't get me. Yeah.
When it's used tastefully, I don't mind it.
Sure.
But this movie, it's coming upon award season. I mean, we're in January 2014. Golden Globes is coming up. Academy Awards are coming up. Do you think this film will stand a chance for any awards, or has it been getting the recognition that it should?
Well, I think it's a question that I was pondering before seeing the movie, and it's very interesting. Fox, the way that they poised this movie and how they were positioning this movie a couple of years ago, 2012, at this big convention in Las Vegas, Exhibitors Distributor Convention. It's a huge convention that goes on. All the studios bring out their big guns and what's going to be upcoming for the year. It usually takes place in March or so, and you get a sneak peek at all the big stuff, and they bring out the stars and whatnot. In 2012, Fox, they had a really great presentation, and they brought out Ang Lee to show first time ever footage for Life of Pi, and it became an event. And Ang Lee talked about scenes, and they showed about 20 minutes of the movie, and it really made a statement. It made a really big statement, and I don't want to credit. I think it was the leaping point it eventually went to win the Academy Award. The movie stands on its own, and it did the business, won the award. That's fantastic. I think they tried in 2013, this past year, Fox tried to do the same thing with Walter Mitty. And they brought Ben Stiller out and Kristen Wiig. And they had some banter, and Ben Stiller talked about why this film was important to him. And he showed about 20 minutes worth of footage on the movie, and it looked big, and it looked big, epic. It made a statement. It looked like it was going to be a big film. And then they picked the release date, which was December 25th. And I think Fox thought they might have had something a little more than what. And again, I'm not faulting anybody. Last year has been a fantastic year for movies, I think.
I think so too.
From commercial box office movies to great prestige films. And we've talked about them here. I'm not entirely sure. I think that Walter Mitty got a little bit lost in the shuffle. I don't think it's as good as some of the prestige films that we've talked about. But I think it's a good crowd pleaser. And like I said at the beginning of the show, there's nothing wrong with that. He made a fine film. I think it got sort of lost in the shuffle.
Yeah, I think it was kind of like a palate cleanser kind of movie.
After
all the epic movies that came out in 2013, and to end the year on a movie like The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, it was one of those easy films to just enjoy.
Yeah, and I think it was a very easy film to enjoy, and I think it was screened in New York for a festival. Maybe it was the New York Film Festival. And the word came out that the critics were meh on the movie, but audiences loved it. They said that's the one thing that the article had said. And they had already had it positioned for the 25th. And then they sort of kind of changed the marketing. It came out that they got a PG rating, so it's very family friendly, they said. Mm-hmm. But I don't see Walter Mitty as a family film. Had Disney done it, it would have been maybe more of a family film. But I don't see parents taking their 13, 14, 15-year-old kids to this, because I don't think it's going to be relevant to them and to a child. And I don't think it would be fantastical enough to just grab that attention. I think.
Yeah, I agree with that, because kids can't jump on a plane by themselves.
No.
You know, you need an adult to help you even get on
Yeah.
a plane. But so I can see why the kids might get lost in that. But it definitely does speak to the adults. So the young adults, the older adults that have had that kind of lifestyle, they're kind of stuck.
Sure.
And they just want to kind of get out and explore and maybe change their lives a little bit.
No, absolutely.
Everyone wants that, though.
Yeah, and it goes back to what we talked about earlier, where Walter Mitty is the everyman. I think as far as legacy goes, look, I don't want to sound like I'm disparaging anybody because we like the movie. I like the movie. I just don't think that the caliber of acting was. We've seen some fantastic performances, and we've seen such fantastic performances this past year that some of these people might not get nominated, like a Sam Rockwell, for the way back. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Hopefully he gets remembered. But I'm saying the performances in Walter Mitty, I felt, while they were very serviceable and very good and drew me in, I didn't think they had that Academy wow.
Agree.
And
it wasn't beyond their range.
True.
Like they didn't. It doesn't seem they really challenged themselves. I know Kristen Wiig wanted to, strengthen her muscles in the drama, in the more serious roles and stuff. But it doesn't seem like something that was too hard to find, that you had to do like an everyday ritual to get yourself like, in that mental mentality, that mind state that can really help the actors get to showcase and their acting abilities.
Yeah, and Ben Stiller was again, we talked, he's great as the everyman, and he was very good in this movie. I just think with movies that we've seen already,
but you know what, I didn't mind that. I didn't mind that the acting wasn't over the top. I think the visual aspect compensated for that.
No, it did. I'm gonna think aloud. From a distribution aspect, I just wonder if it would have behooved them to maybe put the movie in January and or February, where there's not a whole heck of a lot going on, and you've got this movie that is very sweet. It has a heart. It's got a nice message, and that maybe if you didn't put it, like, look at December 25th in 2013 had about 8 movies opening, and some of them, and Walter Mitty was one of those that sort of kind of got stuck in the middle. You had some movies do this, and Walter Mitty was like, it's hung around. I think, let's take a look because I have it. As of yesterday, we've done...
January 9th was yesterday.
Yeah, it's 47 million, which isn't...
And the budget was, what, 90 million?
It was about, for total budget, including P&A, is estimated at 125.
125, okay.
So, in domestic and foreign, as of yesterday, it was about 114 million. So, the movie's not, like, blazing trails at the box office. And I just wonder, my experience, I wonder, had they released it in January and you given it time to breathe and you take it out of that, like, there was no need to necessarily try to get any kind of awards because Fox doesn't have a Life of Pi this year.
Yeah.
And I think that's originally that they were positioning this to sort of be that.
And I think that Ben Stiller doesn't seem like he was in it. We just got to make this movie for money, because look at his past films. It's purely passion films.
Yeah.
And Secret Life of Walter Mitty seemed like a passion film for him.
Yeah.
That it was one that he wanted to put his name on. He wanted to say, yes, this is my work. This is what the kind of movies I want to do and hopefully build upon.
Yeah.
So it seems like he did it for the pure craft and love of just filmmaking.
Yeah, and if you want me to do another night at the museum, guys, this is the movie that I want to make. I want to make, I really love this script. And this is the movie that I want to make. Mm-hmm. They agree to it. And, he doesn't mind making, he even said, he goes, when I'm on the set of Night at the Museum, he goes, and I'm not directing, he's like, listen, I show up, I have a good time, I do it. Once they say, okay, cut, I'm done. I don't have to worry about it as much. And he says when he directs, he's working arduously right up until release of the film. And so I just think that it's funny. He goes, when he was on Howard Stern, he even said, he goes, yeah, I think the next, It was my next project that I direct. He goes, I just would like to not be in the movies that I direct. I think I just want to focus on directing. I'd like to see that too, but I also enjoy seeing him on screen.
Yeah, and I think we all do. And I think that's good for him that he still has all those abilities. He can act and direct and write and do all those things within his own movies. He has that creative power.
He's a creative guy, too.
Yeah.
I mean, I love the show that he had on, I think it was Fox, the Ben Stiller show, where he had his crew of people like Janine Garofalo and such, and they used to do skits. And he's a creative guy. He's a funny man. Listen, look, you look at Meet the Fockers. When you look at his career, he's had some misses, like everybody does. But the ones that work, like when he does his characters with Dodgeball is great.
Yeah.
Zoolander is funny, although I know they're bandying about a Zoolander a sequel.
2, yeah.
And especially after, Anchorman 2 did some money, so that might happen. He hinted. I don't know if I'm ready for another Zoolander movie, but the first one's very funny, and Ben Stiller himself is a talented guy.
Too,
yeah,
so.
He's a talented guy.
So I'm excited for more Ben Stiller movies. I would like to see another type of more serious ones from Ben Stiller, because it's still his drama, more serious movies is still new to me, and I want to see him improve upon that. Mm-hmm. So, and not that this one was bad, it's just I want to see him grow.
And I think with Walter, well, for me, I was like, wow, this is like, especially like Tropic Thunder. It was a really good, funny comedy.
Also starring our own Maria Menounos.
That's right. And and why wasn't she in Walter Mitty? What? Huh? Come on, Ben. No, but I just think that Walter Mitty did show a progression. Like, he's becoming a more accomplished director in the way that he's organizing shots and scenes, and like this movie had these big epic, like when you look at Greenland, and we talked about how beautiful it is.
The
and
landscape.
Yeah, a lot of that comes down to the director working with his crew. We've said this many times before. A good director, they're going to surround themselves with talented people, and they get the respect from that. And, Walter Mitty, you're right. It showed a passion for the film. So I appreciated it for that. I just thought that there were some hits and misses. The end for me could have been a little more, there could have been a little bit more.
He still gets the girl.
He gets the girl, but I wanted that moment to be bigger.
More bigger.
I wanted it to be, like, I felt at the end of the movie when we find out what the picture is. And the picture is the quintessence, what was it?
Quintessence. Quintessence.
The quintessence of life.
Of life.
And it was of Walter Mitty sitting down, looking at Film Negative, putting Life magazine together, putting the pictures together, quintessential life. And, it was a great thing that it ends that Walter Mitty is on the final cover of Life magazine.
Dedicated to all the people who made it.
Who made it.
Who helped make it.
And I thought that was such a special moment.
I love that.
That it almost overshadowed the relationship to me. And I wanted the relationship to be big too, as big as that scene. Because when you finally see it, you're going, that's really cool. And you get that photographer gets what life is. It's the people who put this together. And don't forget about it.
And it's also like the way the movie ended, that he has all the things to start another life.
Right.
Because at the beginning of the movie, he doesn't have anything to build his online profile, but at the end of the movie, he has all these things to build a whole new resume.
Right.
So it's just all these things that he can apply, all these things that he traveling, and just apply it in different ways.
And he actually has a conflict with a real life, like, conflict with the boss, with Adam Scott, where he, like, which would have, in the beginning of the film, would have become some elaborate fantasy. But when the reality takes over from the fantasy, and he goes up to him and says, you're a real jerk. Like, a lot of these people, they love this magazine. Like, you don't even know it. You don't even know what the slogan is, do you? And he didn't. And he goes, all these people, they lived by that slogan. You're treating them bad. And, like, it was that right there is another arc that seals that he's become a changed man by the end of the movie.
I think so.
Yeah.
I loved his character arc. I didn't think that Cheryl Melhoff had a big character arc.
No.
Other than the fact that she was a catalyst and his reasons and motivation to keep him going throughout the movie, she herself didn't really grow.
No,
near the
but
end.
but to me, I'm
But
fine.
the movie
I wasn't following
really.
her.
She's
Yeah.
not the star of the movie.
Yeah.
She was that supporting character.
Yeah,
But I did loved the last photo. Like the shout out to anyone who helps create something and get recognition. I always love that, the unsung heroes.
yeah, yeah. And again, you go back to the dying breed of film and what technology has brought us and what it's taking away from us. A negative assets person. Maybe at a studio they have to gather this stuff up, but just so they can digitize it. I've worked in this business where the digital world has really, some people have lost their jobs because of the digital world and things going to digital and losing, it's for me, it seemed to be very on purpose that this was about, a big Time magazine. It was about the last issue of a print, like something tangible, something you touch, to where you had a photographer who still only works in film, to your main character was a film negative asset manager. Those resonated to me only because of the business I think that I work in, and seeing how the digital world has impacted the things that actually made the world to what it is. And we see newspapers going away daily.
Oh yeah, a lot of people are getting away from print, and I think that's sad. And even in books and stuff, that everything's going to Kindles and Amazon online, and all those audiobooks and stuff.
And that's why
I can't handle that. I can't.
And that's why I convinced myself the reason why I bought a Nook is because I still support a bookstore. I may not be reading the print version of the book, but I am still supporting the brick and mortar, the big Barnes and Noble company, which if they're still around in 5 years, I'd be amazed. But I do have a Nook. Yeah. We'll see.
But yes, overall, I did love this movie. One of my favorite small little moments that I loved, and it was so simple, is that at the beginning of the movie, you see Walter, he's typing his life out, and there's nothing there. But now, as he's traveling up the Himalayan mountains, he's literally writing it.
Yeah.
And you can see that his handwriting in the sky, and it's like he's writing out his life.
Right.
It's written. So just that progression, I loved.
Yeah, I enjoyed that too. I also enjoyed the credit sequence.
Same
at the
here.
beginning. I really thought that was inventive, and it actually...
And even at the end, too.
It made me look for it then. Like, a lot of times, the opening credits of the movie, like okay, I know you. That's your logo. Let's get on with it.
That was brilliant.
I thought it was done well.
All the mottos and quotes here and there that everyone can still apply to life now.
Yeah.
And even the movie itself was motivational.
Absolutely. And for me, one of my favorite scenes, and it's in the trailer, so it's one of those moments. It's when he's running. When he realizes I'm going to go on this journey, and he's running by that wall that has all the classic Life covers of Life, and then it ends with him as the astronaut. Yeah, that's cool. Something that we should say about The Secret Life of Walter Mitty is that the movie itself, the studio itself, is very altruistic. It's the Walter Mitty, so to speak, gives back. Did you hear about this story about the promotion? What would you do if someone offered you $25,000 to live your dream? And this was the question posed, and then a filmmaker by the name of Casey Neistat, if I mispronounced that, my apologies, by 20th Century Fox, while the studio was seeking an inventive new way to promote the movie. This filmmaker, Neistat, could have said he wanted to climb the Alps or swim with sharks or be Bat Kid for a day, but instead he told Fox he wanted to take the entirety of that promotional budget, that $25,000, and bring aid to people over to the Philippines. So, and if you remember, November 7th, there was that typhoon that hit the Philippines, and Neistat, he took the money. Fox, this is a great idea. He filmed it, and with the $25,000, he believed he could do so much more. And
that's great.
Yeah, so he went out. Let's see. You can look for it on YouTube. You can see his film about the Philippines. Let's see. For only a movie, I jumped on a plane with my best friend and fellow adventurer Oscar. We flew to Manila in a rush to get to the Philippines and bring what relief this budget could allow. It left him little time to formulate a plan. Joining his efforts with the pre-existing nonprofit proved complicated, so he instead planned his own relief effort. The Hollywood Reporter reports he and Oscar Boysen went to a well-established town called Cebu. That's C-E-B-U?
Cebu.
Cebu.
You know, I was actually born in Cebu.
Shut up.
No, I was.
Really?
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
So
Wow.
I'm loving this story because
Yeah.
for all those who are listening, I am Filipino. This is really
You were
speaking to
born-
home
yeah,
to me.
So he went to Cebu. He bought a massive haul of supplies, including food and medicine. It was so much stuff that it wouldn't fit in the truck. So with the help of 2 passenger buses, Nestat and Boysen brought all this aid to the shattered coastal city of Tacloban. Is that it?
That's
TAC, yeah, after a 6.5-hour drive.
Wow.
Then they handed out tools for 35 villages, food for 10,000 meals, and medicine to all the local organizations.
That's amazing. I
that-
love stories like that.
It's a great
Hopefully
thing.
we could see Walter Mitty do that, because when he was traveling, he was doing it for himself, but now he can travel more and help others as
Yeah,
well.
no, I
That'd
think
be great.
I think it's great. And one other thing that Walter Mitty speaks for me is that we did, and by we I mean I work for Technicolor. We did a lot of the special effects, and I'm going to send a link because the visual effects supervisor Guillaume Rochan, he did a lot of the special effects. They needed to build a beautiful reality, so to speak. And so I will send the link, which we should post on the site, which breaks down 6 scenes: the dog scene, the shark scene, the skateboarding scene is another one,
yes.
the border crossing, talks all about how the visual effects were done and what this visual effects supervisor brought to it. It's really cool. Comes with video. And I mean, if you're a film fan, this is the kind of thing that you get onto
That's awesome.
on a Blu-ray. So I will share that so that we can put that on the anatomyofmovie.com website, and whoever wants to see it. I'm proud of it because it's a Technicolor company.
Yeah, that's
So-
great. I can't wait to read that link. And yes, please, everyone, go on iTunes and rate and comment and subscribe to Anatomy of a Movie. And we're going to be covering a bunch of movies in the future. Like, this is not going anywhere. And
No.
I did really enjoy this movie. And to round out 2013, it was a great movie to end on.
Yeah.
And hopefully go into the new year with a new life, new perspective on
Sure.
everything. So,
Absolutely. And I had a really good time. It's great to be back, Marisa. It's a pleasure
It
to
is
see you.
great.
It really is. I want to do like top 10s. We're going into award season and everything.
Yeah,
so
we're going to be covering a lot of Oscar-nominated
absolutely.
movies as well.
Oh, and I do have one other thing. It's not Walter Mitty related, but I found this morning. If anybody out there was as inspired by the American Hustle soundtrack as I was, where I went and I looked up Duke Ellington, iTunes now has the entire 40 tracks of Live at Newport
Wow.
for like $16.
That's
And
not bad at all.
No, it's not bad at all. It's a great soundtrack. So I got to give a plug for that before we go, since we talked about soundtracks and how important they are to movies.
That's great.
So-
I can't wait to listen to that too, because that sounds amazing. Demetri,
Yeah.
where can everyone find you to keep the conversation
You
going?
can find me here at anatomyofamovie.com. We have a great board, so you can reply, give your comments, tell us your life's objectives. Tell us what, if you saw Walter Mitty, if you had anything similar going on. I don't want to be if you hated the movie, tell us that too. But that's where you can find me. Love me, hate me, tell me. I'll write back.
Yes.
I love everybody.
Yes, and you can follow all of us here on Twitter at Movie Anatomy. And yes, please go on iTunes, and we will see you for the next movie.
Yeah. Oh my God, Golden Globes are this Sunday
Yeah,
too. Jeez,
this
yeah,
Sunday.
we're
Tune
really
in.
rearing into this. So
Tune in.
Academy Award nominations are in about a week or so. Yeah, it's gonna be a
Yeah.
fun season.
We will see you for the next movie.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the rest of the Anatomy of a Movie staff, we would like to thank you for listening and subscribing to the show. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to email or tweet us. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been Anatomy of a Movie.
Thanks for watching Anatomy of a Movie on YouTube. For more on your favorite movies, subscribe to our channel here and be sure to let us know what you think in our comment section below here. Bye.